Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Jennifer and you are listening to the Ego Next Door podcast. Today, I will be talking about coping with abuse as an adult and sharing some resources on how to gain better insight into your own life and address challenges that might be keeping you off track. Being an adult who has not had the opportunity to fully develop emotionally as a child, enjoy a healthy childhood, thus being forced to grow up too quickly without proper tools, is distressing. Narcissistic fleas aside, when reaching adulthood as a trauma survivor, it is quite typical to feel lost, inadequate, and have difficulty fitting in or relating to anyone. We can blame this on one specific thing: conditioning. According to the Oxford Dictionary, conditioning is the process of training or accustoming a person or an animal to behave in a certain way or to accept certain circumstances. When raised in unhealthy, toxic environments, conditioning happens. Have you ever wondered why you always tend to attract problematic, inconsistent people in your life, even years after a traumatic experience? Well, this is due to conditioning. Conditioning will make a child perceive toxic relationships as normal, which later on can reveal itself in the form of an adult who has difficulty making real connections. Strings of toxic relationships, attracting emotionally unavailable individuals, and often narcissists is the typical paradigm. Victims of childhood trauma will often have similar personality traits, such as an unstable sense of identity, high levels of neuroticism, unadjusted anger and impulsivity, external success orientation, and scarce social engagement, only to name a few. These, of course, reflect in struggling with issues such as depression, anxiety, distorted cognition, personality deficits, and lower levels of social support. Experiencing complex situations as a child without guidance of an emotionally mature adult more often than not results in a child not learning how to manage their own emotions. The 3 coping techniques most often adopted by victims to protect against painful, intrusive thoughts and feelings are repression, denial, and detachment. Numerous mental and physical health issues can occur when someone suppresses their past experiences of abuse. Some include, but are not limited to, eating disorders, substance abuse, anxiety, low self-esteem, rage, guilt, learning difficulties, physical illness, and dissociation. For that reason, it is not always easy to just realize one has narcissistic fleas, address it, and move on. Often, it is more complicated than that. So, how do we gain awareness of our behaviors? How do we know if we are acting out narcissistic traits on the subconscious premise of self-sabotage or self-preservation? The first thing is knowing the difference between the two. Self-sabotage does not benefit us, whereas self-preservation is all about benefiting oneself, careless about the means one takes to reach a specific end. As we have discussed here on episode 8, a victim of trauma can adopt narcissistic traits because their abuser's narcissism is rubbing off on them. When this happens, your narcissism sabotages you because you are not acting to benefit yourself. You are simply emulating the behaviors you saw and lived with in a long-term basis. Therefore, even if you are aware that there is something about your behavior that seems off and is taking away more than giving anything of use, it is difficult to figure out what to do to resolve it. Also, in these instances, you do not feel that your behavior is always justified, and you may even feel that your sense of identity is so damaged that you do not always recognize who you are. You are intuitively aware that there is something taking over your character, but are unsure of what the issue is. Sometimes you may act impulsively and be angry, hostile, verbally, or physically aggressive. There may be moments where you are unadaptable to other people and would rather do things alone than work along with others because you feel irritated and have a hard time cooperating. These conducts can easily emulate narcissistic behaviors but be rooted in trauma, as a method of self-defense that can be reversed and healed. As Dr. Parkin sums it up, A person's willingness to heal, recover, and devote themselves to an improved life and changed actions may be what ultimately separates true narcissists from trauma-associated narcissistic symptoms. A big concern related to this is the phenomenon of NPD and narcissism misdiagnosis. There are several mental illnesses that have been reported as frequently misdiagnosed. Psychiatric disorders that can imitate narcissistic traits include post-traumatic stress disorder, borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, obsessive-compulsive disorder, anxiety, autism, and Asperger's disorder. With that being said, receiving a diagnosis can be harmful. In fact, some therapists will not provide a diagnosis because they don't think it's essential to the recovery process. The reason for this is that labels can cause patients to concentrate on the wrong aspects of their mental health condition. From a critical standpoint, psychiatric diagnoses based only on symptom clusters are misleading and scientifically meaningless. According to current investigations, psychiatric diagnoses are insignificant as a means of differentiating and identifying discrete mental health disorders. Essentially, what matters most is the problem at hand and behavioral patterns that can cause threat to a person's ability to enjoy a gratifying life. In fact, in my opinion, we should not be relying on people having been diagnosed as narcissists to assume that they are narcissistic and stay away from them. I think that would be like wanting someone to be diagnosed as nice in order to decide for ourselves if a person is in fact a nice person and deserving of our energy. All in all, categorizing people and desiring to put them in little boxes to make up our minds about their character can result in relying too much on other people's opinion of something than on our own gut feeling about it. I believe the key here is to develop our intuition and critical thinking. Unlike many might assume, what we are doing when assuming someone is narcissistic is simply classifying their character according to the information that we have. Saying someone is narcissistic is not the same as saying someone has a personality disorder. And the main objective of being able to critically assess someone's character is to understand if we should keep that person's presence in our life or if it is doing us more harm than good. This can potentially generate chaos and bring a lot of heartache. As my therapist would say, it is more important to understand how your behavior is affecting your own life and not working in your favor than clinically labeling yourself. The priority is understanding what behavioral patterns can be changed in order to live a happier life, achieve emotional fulfillment, and the well-being that one desires. In psychology, it is believed that when humans do not meet their basic psychological needs, including autonomy, relatedness, and competence, their lives fall out of balance. This can lead to increased neurotic behaviors such as addictive tendencies, anxiety, and depression. A very interesting tool that I was presented with by my therapist is the Wheel of Life. Although it does sound like a game night show, it is actually a popular assessment tool that is simple yet quite effective in order to improve a person's level of fulfillment in life. It is also known as the Life Balance Wheel, and it is made up of a set of categories that pretty much make up the typical foundation of a person's well-being. It can be used to guide someone to setting specific goals and tracking one's individual progress. The Wheel of Life was initially developed by Paul J. Meyer in the 1960s and only has 6 categories. However, the current most popular template is made up of 8 different categories in which a person can give it a rating of satisfaction from 0 to 10. These categories include health, career, friends, family, love, fun, money, and spirituality. The good news is that these categories simply serve as an initial guidance, and you can personalize these categories however you like. You can add more, replace, or remove others. The rating you attribute to each should be the first number that pops in your head and classifies the current state of mind related to these different aspects, not what you wish these ratings were. After filling out this wheel, The goal is to look at the results and figure out in a visual manner which categories seem to currently be at lower levels of fulfillment. Usually, this will indicate the aspects that require more work in order to be satisfied. Afterwards, one should establish a course of action for each category by thinking of a couple of tasks for each that one would like to focus on. And that's it. Then it's time to get to work. Of course, there are many other tools and resources, and as I have previously addressed, the ideal scenario would be finding a psychologist that is a match for you. However, it is understandable that due to socio-economical concerns, not everyone can simply afford one. This is what makes self-help even more important and a great starting point in your healing. On the next episode, we will discuss how narcissistic abuse affects romantic relationships and the ability to accept love. Thank you for listening to the Ego Next Door podcast. See you soon, and I hope you have a wonderful day. If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to hear more, don't forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel at Ego Next Door. And if you would like to support my work, consider becoming a patron to my Patreon creator page at Jennifer Hachia. The Ego Next Door podcast is presented solely for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. The content here is not intended to serve as a substitute for the consultation, diagnosis, or medical treatment of a qualified healthcare provider. Reliance on any information provided here is at your own risk. If you or someone you know is in crisis or experiencing suicidal thoughts, please reach out immediately to someone who can help right away. Call your national emergency services or go to the nearest hospital.